Okay, 8.3, intelligence and how we assess it. You will be able to define intelligence and list the characteristics of how psychologists measure intelligence by focusing on the theories surrounding intelligence. Intelligence is actually hard to define. The best definition is that it's a mental ability that solves problems, learns from experiences, and adapts to situations. They believe that intelligence is a concept, not a thing. So that means that it changes. There's two major debates over intelligence. Are we each born with intelligence, or is it quantifiable? In addition to that, is it a general ability or several specific abilities? So in other words, are there different types of intelligence, or is there just one kind of intelligence? So we are looking at two different types of intelligence. These are reviews, so you guys may already have this down. The first is fluid intelligence, which is your ability to reason quickly logic problems, and this we see decreases in age. And then there's crystallized intelligence, which is the knowledge that comes with experience. Now, something to note, we're going to come back to fluid intelligence here in a moment when we talk about IQ testing. Intelligence in the brain. So something kind of interesting, there is a small correlation between brain size and IQ scores. In other words, the bigger the brain, the higher the IQ scores. It's not a huge correlation, it's a 0.33, so I mean that's strong but not definite. What we do know though is that as adults age, their brain size and intelligence scores tend to fall overall. Now we kind of covered this when we talked about crystallized and fluid intelligences. And so there is something to be said about the fact that you score better on IQ tests when you have a higher fluid intelligence because you can go quicker. We do know that highly educated people tend to have more synapses. Remember, a synapse develops every time you learn something new. So the idea is, do they have more synapses because they're smart, or do they get more synapses because they study more? So it's kind of the chicken or the egg. And like I said earlier, people who perceive stimuli faster, so that fluid intelligence, tends to do better on intelligence tests. So it's kind of hard to nail down exactly when it comes to intelligence, the correlations. There's a lot of different factors that go into it. A couple early pioneers, there's two that you need to be familiar with. The first is Alfred Binet, and what he is important for knowing is this idea of mental age, essentially where you should be intellectually based on the age, the chronological age you are. And the second was Lewis Terman. He took Binet's ideas and turned it into an intelligence test, which was called the Stanford-Binet IQ test. Spearman was one of the first theorists on intelligence. He used what we call factor analysis, which means the statistical procedures that identifies a cluster of related items. And he essentially used this to determine what we call the G factor. And the G factor is this idea of general intelligence. So he used factor analysis to determine that most individuals have this similar or a general intelligence. And he just kind of said we all have one type of intelligence. So that's something to know about Spearman. Spearman said we have one type of intelligence, and that was the G intelligence. Gardner is our next theorist on intelligence, and he believed we have 8 different types of intelligence. And the reason why he determined this is because he said you can have brain damage and it may diminish one type of intelligence, but you can still be really, really smart in other areas. And so these are the 8 types that he determined. You don't necessarily need to know all of them, but you should know that he decided that there were 8. He also said that people with savant syndrome excel in abilities unrelated to the general intelligence. So this is why he disagreed with Spearman above, is because he said that you can have you could be a savant, which means that you are extremely intelligent in a specific area, but you may not have some general abilities. Sternberg, so there's 3. So we call it the triarchic theory. He says that there's an analytical intelligence. This is what we We think about book smart, somebody who does well in school. Creative intelligence, somebody who can come up with new ideas or very artistic and musically intelligent. And then practical intelligence. This is like the everyday street smarts. And finally, we have emotional intelligence. And that is there's 4 types of emotional intelligence. The first is, can you perceive emotion? In other words, can you recognize emotions when you're looking at somebody or hearing a story? The second is, can you understand emotions? Can you predict an emotion and how they change and how they blend? The third is manage emotions. Can you express emotions in different situations? Like, for example, don't laugh at a funeral kind of a situation. And then fourth, can you use emotions? Can you utilize your emotion to adapt or be creative? And just a question or food for thought is, what is a criticism when we start to include emotion in defining intelligence? So could that be problematic? And that's it for today.